All right, it is Hannibal here, and I have Zach McGibbon beside me. He is my co-host for today. This is the very first ever Great North Wrestling podcast here on the Hannibal TV, and it will also be available to download if you go into the description of this video. We don't have a name for this podcast yet. We are going to take fan suggestions, and then the top fan suggestions we're going to have a poll on. So if you want to send your fan suggestions to greatnorthwrestling@gmail.com. You could also send your questions. If you have any questions about Great North Wrestling or Hannibal, you can send them to us through greatnorthwrestling@gmail.com or message our Facebook page, which is Great North Wrestling. We also have a Twitter at GNW. RESTLING. And Zach, you are my co-host for today. It's going to be revolving co-hosts.
Obviously here helping out with the first podcast episode, and super excited for the upcoming Great North Wrestling event, Cage Wars, coming up in Smith Falls. That should be a really fun show. I'm excited to see the match between you and Rene Dupree. That should be a hell of a match. So, but yeah, I'm
if there's anything left of him, because I actually have 2 matches with him this weekend in Prince Edward Island. They're not going to be in a cage, but I have to go there. I'm not happy because the weather's finally getting better here, and I have to go somewhere where it's even colder.
Oh, man.
And I have to be exposed to all those country hicks out there. But I have to wrestle this French. I don't like him at all. It's not just that he's French. I don't have any problem with French people. It's the beret wearing.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to take his beret and make him eat his beret. But that's
I've seen you trading shots back and forth on Facebook as well. It seems really intense. I'm interested to see how those matches play out, and maybe if I wonder how the Great North Wrestling Committee will react if you do beat him up to a bloody pulp, where we may not have a main event at Smith Falls.
I think he's going to have 2 weeks to recover if everyone prays for him and he's able to recover enough to get into that cage on crutches. I will definitely end his career there. But we also have David Hart Smith, also known as Davey Boy Smith Jr., also known as Harry Smith, who is a 2-time WWE Tag Team Champion and New Japan Pro Wrestling star, also wrestles for Ring of Honor. He's taking on 2-time Canadian Champion Jeremy Prophet. That's going to be an interesting match. And we actually have Harry's uncle on the phone today, Smith Hart, who has a few things to respond to. He wants to respond to Bruce Hart's recent podcast. He made some comments about Owen and
Pritchard, of course.
Yeah, Pritchard.
Yeah.
And Smith had some comments about that. And he also wants to talk about Jindar Mahal a little bit, who is from the Calgary area and also wrestled for Great North Wrestling for a few years. Used to be very good friends with me back when we were in Stampede Wrestling together. We've grown apart in recent years, but he has a big match coming up, I guess, against Randy Orton on pay-per-view.
Yeah. That's
what are your thoughts on that? There's a lot of controversy.
Well, it's interesting, eh? I mean, the guy's been built up as an enhancement guy for the longest time. I've seen both sides of the argument. One side of the argument saying, well, we need something new, right? We don't want guys like the older legends like Goldberg or Lesnar coming in and taking the spots of young and up-and-comers. But I've also seen the side of, well, he's been an enhancement talent for the longest time, and why are you thrusting him up into this main event position? Me personally, I mean, I want to see how it plays out first. I watched SmackDown this past week, and there were some moments I thought it was pretty good, and some moments I thought, you know, it'll have to take another couple of weeks to see where it goes. When he won the #1 contenders matchup last week, I actually liked the promo he did afterwards. I thought it was a very good promo. But again, I think it's just going to be a matter of just waiting and seeing how this all develops and turns into a storyline. And if this becomes a permanent thing for Jindar Mahal, seeing him in the main event slot.
And I understand some of it may have to do with the fact that they're going to India soon, and they want a star from India. That's why they brought in that tag team as well to be with him.
It seems to be a race in India, really. I mean, a lot of people are talking about there's been this huge I guess you could say, just British wrestling right now is so hot, just insanely hot. But a lot of the markets, like TNA is going to have tapings in India, or actually I should say Impact Wrestling is going to have tapings in India, and WWE is trying to reach that India market as well. And so yeah, I've heard those rumors as well. I mean, me personally, I don't think thrusting somebody immediately into that spot is going to help. But and if it was like, if it was a slow build to him being a bigger guy, I'd be fine with it. But they thrust him immediately. They were saying that it's been 6 months since he actually won a match, and when he won the match, it was that #1 contender matchup, right? But yeah, I mean, it's been this massive race to India to see to try and get TV, try to establish wrestling presence in India, because I believe TNA has the channel that they're on is like the #2 channel in India or something like that. So it's got a huge reach, and that's one of the things that's keeping TNA going, is that revenue stream. So they certainly want to establish that connection in India, and of course WWE wants to be very, very much global and wants to control the wrestling landscape around the world. So India is definitely one of their top targets. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see how Jindar develops. I find it funny that the way they're going to build up Jindar Mahal as this figure in India is to bash the United States, but we'll see. I'm keeping my eyes on it. I'm going to give it a chance and see where it goes.
I haven't seen any of it, to be honest. I don't have cable. I'm not a fan of the current television products, but I do read the news, and I was happy to see at least that he's gotten himself into top shape.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to push someone that actually looks like a wrestler, other than a guy that looks like a grade 10 fat kid that I used to bully in school or something like that.
Well, like I have no comments on that. I'm sure I'm assuming you're talking about Kevin Owens. Maybe slightly.
He's one of them. Yeah, he's definitely one of the people that I don't think is a good representative of the company. But they can do whatever they want. My main concern is with Great North Wrestling, the HANNIBAL TV. But it looks bad on the whole wrestling business to have someone like Kevin Owens as a representative, and he was a very low drawing representative of the company. They hit some all-time ratings low records while he was holding the title. There
are definitely stats that do support the fact that when he was on top as champion, as the Universal Champion, the ratings weren't particularly strong. I won't deny that.
And he actually had he had a very quick loss to Goldberg when he lost the title. Then that was followed up by another very quick loss to Brock Lesnar. And I recently interviewed Ken Shamrock, who had some interesting comments about wanting to wrestle Brock Lesnar. What do you think? Do you think there's any chance that that's ever going to happen?
Ken Shamrock versus Brock Lesnar? Oh man, he
used the analogy that they brought back Goldberg, and Shamrock was also a draw at one point, not to the level of Goldberg though, but also a mainstream draw because he had the UFC crowd as well. I mean,
I think there's a much bigger draw for Ken Shamrock versus Brock Lesnar in an MMA cage rather than a wrestling ring. I mean, Brock was a big pay-per-view draw, and still was when he returned at UFC 200. He as this big pay-per-view draw that everybody wanted to buy tickets to see this guy beat the crap out of people, right? And Ken Shamrock was the same way back in when UFC was first developing. I think if it was 2008 and Lesnar was still, in his prime in MMA, and Shamrock was just starting to fall out of it, I think it'd be a big time money match. And Shamrock can still go. I mean, we saw him in Bellator with his fight against Kimbo Slice. A lot
of controversy there, but he actually addressed that in the interview, which is up on the HANNIBAL TV. So I don't know what to say about that, but I don't think it's going to happen, but I thought it was interesting that Ken Shamrock wants that match to happen.
I will say I'd be a little bit intrigued. I'd be intrigued to see if whoever was going to book that, what kind of match stipulation would it be? Would it be like a submission match, or kind of like our cage match here at Smith Falls or whatever?
This is definitely going to be interesting in Smith Falls, May 13th. It'll be the first time in history that an entire professional wrestling event has been held in an MMH cage. Speaking of Ken Shamrock, they did have those Lion's Den matches in WWE, but if you watch those Lion Den's matches, the floor of the cage for that was actually a springed floor.
Yeah.
This is an actual MMA cage that we're going to be fighting.
It's going to hurt.
Yes. It's only going to be the tough lasting, and I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic, and hopefully it's a success and it can become a yearly event. But I'm very much looking forward to having Renee in the cage. It's unfortunate that it wasn't Wes Briscoe, because he did something to my eye in the last match we had that I required stitches from, and that really bothered me, and then he trash talked me. But I'm looking forward to Pembroke, which is actually going to happen June the 30th. It's going to be a free event, and I'm going to get my rematch with Wes Briscoe there, I hope. I've requested it, I've petitioned it, and hopefully the commissioner will give me the match there. Shelton Benjamin is also going to be on that card, as well as Rene Dupree. And the special thing about that card in Pembroke is it's going to be absolutely free. You just need to bring a can of food to the Pembroke Food Bank. So that's going to be a very special show. It's called the Canada Day Kickoff Show, the day before Canada Day. And all the information on all of our events in Great North Wrestling are on our greatnorthwrestling.ca website. So we got a lot of interesting stuff going on. Ottawa, August 5th too, and a lot of people are going to be surprised at the star coming for that one. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet.
Are you teasing here? First episode, come on, let's make a big impact on the first episode. Are you willing to?
The first episode, we have a big impact. We have David Penzer appearing, who just returned with TNA. He was working for us in Orlando. For anyone that's watched the Hannibal TV, I think he did about 50 interviews with various wrestlers in Orlando. The only ones that wouldn't speak to us there were the Honky Tonk Man, surprisingly. I guess he developed a bit of an attitude over the years since we last spoke with him. Hulk Hogan, he agreed to take a picture and let us film in his shop, but he wouldn't appear on camera. And
that doesn't surprise me.
No, and I can't remember who the other one. There was a third, but Greg Valentine.
Greg Valentine?
Yeah.
Really?
Surprise. But overall, it was a very good weekend, and we, of course, did full shoot interviews with Ken Shamrock, Road Warrior Animal, and Heidenreich, who looks like he's seen better days. Unfortunately, he's having a lot of health difficulty, financial difficulty. And I just want to address something. Apparently, Bruce Pritchard mentioned on his podcast that Heidenreich threw a fit, apparently, at Wrestlecon weekend, but from what I understand from my contacts, Heidenreich's fit had to do with his payoff from the people that brought him to Wrestlecon. So it wasn't just an issue of Heidenreich going crazy. There was some sort of pay issue with whoever he snapped on, and there was no charges laid or anything out of that incident. So I really feel bad for Heidenreich. He gave us an interesting shoot interview, about an hour and a half long. He really went into great detail on his career. But I think my favorite shoot interview that weekend was Road Warrior Animals. He didn't hold anything back. We've posted a lot of clips from that, and we're going to post even more. And speaking of shoot interviews, we do have a Patreon website, patreon.com/TheHannibalTV, where we post our full shoot interviews on there minimum 2 weeks before they go public on YouTube. So right now, our full shoot interview with Road Warrior Animal and Heidenreich are on that website, patreon.com/TheHannibalTV, and the Ken Shamrock one will be on there next week. But anyone that wants to help Hannibal TV get more shoot interviews and help the company exist should subscribe to Patreon. It's only $1.99 per month. But right now, there's been some big changes in the wrestling industry as far as YouTube goes. It's affected all sorts of independent companies and YouTube pages, including Great North Wrestling's, because you do get a small amount of money for the hits, for the advertising, I guess. revenue from people that click on the ads on your YouTube videos. So now Google has apparently come to the conclusion that they're no longer going to monetize wrestling-related videos. So that's a hit for sure, because we do this out of passion, but we were using some of that YouTube revenue to get other interviews. So now with that revenue gone, it's going to be very important for people that like our shoot interviews to subscribe to that Patreon page, because it will help us do other interviews. For instance, we would have loved to have been at the Cauliflower Alley event this weekend, but unfortunately it's just not in the budget. So if anyone wants to help our cause, you can join. It's $1.99 a month. You'll be able to see our shoot interviews minimum 14 days before they go public on YouTube. And as we get more subscribers on there, we only have I guess 3 right now, so not very many, but every single person helps. Yeah, exactly. And one of those subscribers is actually a personal friend doing it just to be nice. But if you like our content and you want to help us get more content, we will be investing any Patreon money we get in future interviews. So we definitely want to go to WrestleMania again next year. We want to go to Memphis. There's a lot of people I want to interview in Memphis, such as Psycho Sid. There's a whole group of people that we want to get in that area. So if you want to support us on Patreon, we will appreciate it. And eventually, if we get enough subscribers, we'll even do custom content on Patreon. But if you're in Canada, it's like a $2 a month. So that's not very much, and you'd be helping us out greatly. But speaking of the Hannibal TV, we did a great interview a couple months ago, full shoot interview with David Penzer. He was with us in Orlando, as we brought up, and we did an interview with David Penzer, who just returned to TNA Wrestling, and he answered some questions with us about TNA Wrestling. You had some about some backstage happenings. What is that? Can you shed some light on that?
I saw some reports later on, I believe Tuesday, and it was just coming out of the Impact tapings. Now, apparently what had happened was, apparently some news reports came out, first reported actually by Mark Madden, and people were kind of hesitant because, you know, like, Mark Madden is an interesting figure in the wrestling business, but then Justin LaBar came out with the same story, and essentially what's came out was apparently there was a blow-up backstage between Jeff Jarrett and Bob Ryder. And for those who don't know about Bob Ryder takes care of all the bookings, bringing in talent, that sort of stuff for hotels and that sort of deal.
He's also technically, I don't know if he still is since the changes, but he did take over Al Snow's position as head of talent relations for a while there.
So yeah, they had a big blow up, and apparently it was over some, it was over a hotel. But apparently what had happened was, and this is all just, you know, as Bruce Pritchard would say, rumor and innuendo, that's going around is apparently it escalated to the point where Jeff Jarrett just did a whole dress down of Bob Ryder. Just dressed him down and just kept berating him about the situation. And there was a lot of reports coming out saying that if it goes if more stuff gets public about what was said by Jarrett to Bob Ryder, it could have a major negative PR actions, which is definitely not what Impact needs right now when they're trying to rebrand themselves and try and get themselves onto a bigger scale, especially on Pop TV. So,
well, you did ask David Penzer about that, so why don't we throw to that interview right now? Check it out, our interview with David Penzer from The Hannibal TV, and now he's back as ring announcer for TNA Impact Wrestling. All right, so we have David Penzer on the phone here, former WCW ring announcer, The Hannibal TV reporter, and now he's back with TNA. How did you end up getting back with TNA, David?
Oh, I got a call, and I was asked if I wanted to come do the shoots this weekend after they wrote Rockstar Spud off as ring announcer, which was taped on Thursday. And so I did Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and God, I don't know how many shows we taped, but a couple of one-night-only pay-per-views, and I want to say probably six to eight television shows. It was all kind of spread out over different times, but they were happy with everything, and I was happy with everything. So we spoke and decided that I'll be back full time. No contract or anything, just a handshake. I've never had to have a contract with Jeff. If if they want to move in another direction down the road, I'm happy with it. But for the foreseeable future, I should be the voice announcing the matches for Impact Wrestling.
Well, that's excellent to hear. And is Jeff Jarrett actually the head booker for TNA now?
Jeff Jarrett, I believe, is running the wrestling operations of the company. I don't know if the title is head booker, but he has pretty much, I don't want to say total because I don't know, but he's running the show. I was there. He's running the show. If you need to ask a question or you need a final answer, that somebody else in management, like a Scott D'Amore or a Sanjay Dutt or the people Dutch Mantel can't answer, then you go to Jeff for the final answer. So he's the. I don't know what his official title is, but I'll tell you what. Every company I've ever worked for, even TNA the last time, I always felt a little tinge of, God, I don't even know what to call it, but just a tinge of oh, sorry guys, I know this is live and I can't think of the word, but there being some tension. That's what it is. Just a tinge of tension. Different between different factions or things that had happened. And in WCW that was the case, in XWF that was the case, in TNA the first time. Not too bad. Like I said in our shoot interview that we did, it was probably for me mentally the easiest and funnest gig to do. But there, with Dixie and Jeff and then all that stuff, there was always, and Russo, there was always a tinge of tension there, underlying tension. Couldn't really feel it. But what I will tell you is this is the first time I've done a work for a wrestling company where I didn't feel that at all. What I felt was a group of people, both on the creative side, the production side, and the talent side, who really like each other and are really working together to put out a quality product. And it was a cool feeling, I got to say. Not only coming back and doing what I've done on and off throughout the years, but just the fact that it really was a team effort with no little hint, no underline of tension whatsoever. There was, just a bunch of people who really enjoyed each other's company on all sides of the spectrum, whether it be talent or production or management, who really were working hard it was a long weekend, but working hard to try to put out the best product. So I thought that was really cool. So I'm really looking forward to working with them in the future because it's kind of a fun. Makes things a lot more fun, I guess, is the short version when everybody's on the same page trying for the same thing. So you think the change is good overall compared to when you were? I wasn't there when things went bad, so I can't speak to how it was before. When there was but I'm just saying, as a general rule, as far as any time I've ever been in the wrestling business on a major level, this is the first time I didn't feel not one bit of underlying tension between any of the parties. The talent was from what I could see was just happy to be there and wanted to work hard. Whether it was a one night only pay-per-view that I don't know how many people are going to watch, but they're contractually obligated to do for international reasons. Whether that started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a matinee show, or whether it was the main event of Impact, for the Impact Championship. It didn't matter what spot people were in; they all worked hard. It was a grueling weekend of TV, but it felt like a team project, 100%. So, that was my feeling. I'm not just saying that to kiss up to anybody or anything. I told my wife that after the second day. She said, "How is it?" I said, "I've just never felt anything like this before." So it was cool.
I just want to ask, too, we've heard a lot about Josh Matthews. He's been pretty polarizing in the internet wrestling community. How was your interactions with Josh at the tapings?
Well, he still has blocked me on Twitter, so I must not have made that good of opportunity. You know what? Josh and I go way, way back. Right after Tough Enough ended and we started the XWF, I actually booked Josh. It was my idea to come in and do an angle. We were going to make him a big part of our kind of cruiserweight division, and and so he was in our initial tapings. If you go back and see those, and then that was something that I came up with, not to brag, but it just was. So I hadn't seen Josh in forever. I know he had blocked me on Twitter, so I really didn't know what to expect. I don't know if Josh likes me, doesn't like me, could care less, but he's nothing but a gentleman, you know. There was no tension at all. But it's not like we left best buds or anything like that. But, you know, look, I think Josh is a pro. I think he's extremely entertaining at what he's doing now. At least to me, I'm entertained by it. And so, you know, I have nothing bad to say other than, you know, he must not have made that great opportunity because I'm still blocked on Twitter. But I'll live. I'll still be able to rise and shine every day and go to bed every night.
And back to Wrestlecon, you actually worked for the Hannibal TV for Wrestlecon. We had great feedback from all the interviews that you did there. Was there any interview in particular that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I liked Harlem Heat. I liked Jim Duggan. I liked, I'm trying to remember all the ones we did. We did so many. I liked Gail Kim. I liked RVD and Sandman. I liked the ones where we had fun. I liked the one with JB a lot. Of course, Jim Ross was so gracious with his time, especially under the circumstances. You know, not everybody is the type of person off camera, not off camera because we're on camera, but in their real personality, not their scripted personality, that, you know, is outgoing. And so, you know, there were some interviews obviously that were more enjoyable than others, but we tried to get update on everybody that we could grab and see what they're up to and see what they're doing, and some memories of their time in the wrestling business. But yeah, those are some of the ones that stand out. The ones where, you know, we could I felt like I could be myself and have a conversation as opposed to just asking questions and getting answers. But I'm glad everybody enjoyed them. I had a blast.
So I want to actually revert it back to TNA a little bit. There were some reports that came out apparently of a backstage blow-up between Jeff Jarrett and Bob Ryder. Do you know anything about that incident at all?
I know nothing about it. Yeah, I'm out in the ring, so I'm not backstage during the show. I know nothing about it. I think I saw something on it on Twitter, but I got nothing for you there. Sorry, I really don't.
Oh, no worries. Just wondering. It's been talked about. Apparently, there was some issues with hotel bookings and that sort of stuff. It's been coming from guys like Mark Madden and Justin LeBar. And I guess out of all that, what are your opinions of Mark Madden? I'm interested to know what you think of him.
You know, Mark Madden is a controversial guy. Last I knew, I don't know what I know that he's still on the radio in Pittsburgh. I don't know if he's still doing, you know, kind of the shock jock type sports stuff, where he's a little controversial and outspoken. I'm assuming he's still doing that. I always got along good with with him, and you know, I'm glad he's still doing well. And you know, as we saw recently with ESPN, you know, and the layoffs, it's a business that's changing, the radio and the television business. It's a business that's changing. So I'm glad he still has a job, and apparently he does very well. But I haven't seen or talked to Mark Madden in 18 years, 19 years. So I couldn't give you an opinion on that, unfortunately.
And one other question about WCW. Since the shoot interview I did with you that is on the Hannibal TV for anyone that wants to check it out, on Tony Schiavone's podcast and a few other podcasts, it's come out that there was a lot of hatred towards PN News from different wrestlers. I guess Danny Spivey was fired due to not wanting to job to him. Same thing with One Man Gang. I was wondering if you could shed any light on why people disliked PN News.
I really don't know the answer to that question, if I'm being honest. I wish I had more for you guys. Sorry. But I don't know if it was this push that took people the wrong way, because he got a pretty strong push, and he was really over with the crowd at center stage. And then when, you know, so all that the management really got to see other than pay-per-views were center stage, not the house shows, not the live events. Because center stage was downtown, more of an urban area, and tickets were pretty much free to come by. It was a more of an urban type audience, and because he was doing the rapper gimmick and the yo baby yo, they really got into that. You know, you see these days at NXT and Ring of Honor, you know, fans take a liking to certain wrestlers in certain cities, or you know, like the fans in NXT took a liking to the 10 thing for Ty Dillinger, and the glorious thing for Bobby Roode, and you just never know. Like we were talking about when we were talking about Al Snow when he was in WCW and Mr. JL, and you just never know when a crowd's going to decide that they want to get you over. So the crowd at center stage really, really popped big for PN News, and so because of that, he got at least initially for a while, he got a big push. The crowd's on the road because WCW is more in southern towns, cities, and states, Louisiana, the Carolinas, Tennessee, places like that. Didn't react as good. So it might have been, and I'm just totally guessing, a situation where the wrestlers that were on the road saw that he wasn't getting a huge reaction and maybe didn't then want to come to TV and put him over. But that's purely speculation on my part. I don't have any solid answers to that. Curious what the reasons were. Did you hear anybody say what the reasons were?
No, it's just, there hasn't been any very much details on the reasons yet, but as I continue interviewing people, I will get to the bottom of it. And
no, you will, man.
And one other thing before we wrap things up here, you also attended the WWE Hall of Fame during WrestleMania weekend at the invitation of Fit Finlay, I guess. What any thoughts on the Hall of Fame this year?
It was long. But it's well worth it to go. I enjoy. It's the second year I've been a guest of Fit Finlay's, and went over in the WWE buses, and they run a first class operation. They have food and drinks while you're waiting to get on the bus, and it's just everything WWE that I've been around seems to be first class. Although I've not been around a lot, but it was cool to be there. It was good to catch up with a lot of old friends. It was cool to hear the speeches. I thought Diamond Dallas Page's well deserved. Did a great job. Kurt Angle was hilarious, and everybody that was up there was well deserved. So I love that the Rock and Roll Express went in. I just think that's so cool because they so deserve it, and they're not really someone who you would think of as on WWE's radar to put people in the Hall of Fame. So I was so happy for them, and it was just an overall cool experience to be a part of that, and to get a behind the scenes and real close look at it, and it was a great time. And now, I don't know next year if I'm still with Impact Wrestling, if that's going to be something that's going to be doable. But if not, then I enjoyed the last 2 years, and I'll look forward to watching it on the internet.
And hopefully you'll still be working for us next year at Wrestlecon in Louisiana if Impact allows it. And one interesting thing you told me when you were hanging out with some WWE people in Orlando was Eric Bischoff appeared to have a little bit of heat with you, I guess due to something you said about him in your shoot interview. Did you guys get that sorted out at all since then?
He asked me to send him an email. I sent him an email. I haven't heard anything back. I assumed that it wasn't that big a deal, that he wanted to take the time to address it, and so it is what it is. I was honest when you asked me questions. I tried not to offend anybody because everybody, it's easy to look back 20 years and say, this guy's a jerk, and this guy's, so I wouldn't go there with almost anybody.
And he's not your boss anymore, and he's not in charge of any wrestling companies, so it's not really that big a deal.
I like Eric, and I've really gotten to like Eric, so I'm a little disappointed. He's a fun guy to talk to over a cocktail after the show is done. But he has a lot of insight, and not only the wrestling business, but show business. But at the end of the day, I can't control if he's angry at something that I said. If it would have been something that I regretted, I would have apologized. But since he didn't tell me what it was, I didn't get the opportunity to go that far. So, like I said, I will wake up in the morning and go to bed every night, and a little disappointed because recently I've gotten to be on pretty good terms, I think, with Eric. But I have no control over the things I can't control, as you would say.
And for fans wanting to follow you, where can they follow you? I know you have a Twitter account.
Twitter. I'm trying to build a social media presence after all this time. At David Penzer. So, yeah, I'm happy to try and interact more on Twitter and trying to learn how to play the game for a 50-year-old guy who, back in my day, there wasn't even any internet or cell phones or anything. It's not as easy to get used to. But I'm trying to get more involved, so feel free to jump on it at David Penzer, all one word, on Twitter.
And anyone that wants to watch any of the interviews that he did in Orlando, they're all on the HANNIBAL TV, as well as his 2-hour shoot interview with us, which was very interesting for anyone that is a WCW fan and wants to find out what was going on behind the scenes during David Penzer's tenure. As he was, I believe, the only person to be at every single Nitro and Thunder taping, so a lot of behind the scenes knowledge there. And thanks very much for being our very first guest.
Man, I guess it was more interesting than I thought, because my old boss didn't like something I said and didn't want to give me an interview for you guys. So it is what it is.
Well, he watched it at least.
If you listen to this, we'll get past it. I don't need any heat with anybody at 50 years of age. So we'll see. I'd love to hear from him and see what he was annoyed about, but I've got it in my control. But thanks for having me, guys. I'm happy to be on any time you guys want to talk.
All the best to you all the best to you with Impact, and all of our American fans tune into that on Pop TV. Very interesting stuff from David Penzer there. What did you think about what he had to say?
I found it pretty interesting. I'm interested to see where Impact goes from here, especially with this latest round of tapings. We saw Scott Steiner actually return at those tapings,
who looked much different, apparently. I was talking to Billy Graham, and Billy Graham said he's actually concerned about Scott Steiner's health.
Really?
Just because of how different he looked. Mm-hmm. I did see him at Wrestlecon weekend, and he certainly looks like he lost a lot of weight, but I don't know if he has any health issues or not. But he obviously hasn't been wrestling. He has his own business now, a restaurant chain.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's just that he hasn't been training as much or what, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with him being back in TNA, because anyone that's seen our shoot interview with Scott Steiner that we conducted back in 2012, it's up on our The HANNIBAL TV YouTube channel. He used to be very anti-TNA with the old regime, so it was kind of shocking that he's back now.
Yeah, there must have been something that Impact offered him that made him want to come back, especially because it seemed like he was doing really well. Isn't he running a Shoney's?
Shoney's or something.
It's like an American restaurant, but he seemed to be doing well.
Rick Steiner talked all about it in his shoot interview with us on The HANNIBAL TV. Rick Steiner, who I actually defeated, for anyone who hasn't seen, you can also watch that match. I scored a big victory over Rick Steiner last year, which was a very interesting match. He's a tough guy. Still at his age, I think he's 54 or something. That was a good fight. And he wasn't afraid of breaking the rules in that match either.
It was fun calling the match, but it was funny seeing how Rick would try and cross the line a little bit to try and bring you down.
It's not what I expected. That is for sure. And we have a second guest, Smith Hart, who is the eldest member of the Hart family. He had some things to say about the recent Bruce Pritchard podcast about Owen Hart. Just had a couple corrections that he actually wrote in to the show, and he wanted to bring up some of that stuff on our show as well. And he's been having some serious health issues himself lately. Smith, he's actually been told, I guess, that he has about a year to live, less than a year now. So I hope that's not true. Of course, Billy Graham, who we just brought up earlier, also was told that he had 2 years to live about 4 years ago now, and he's still going. He just had a knee operation. He's going to get his hips done, so he's doing better. Vader was even told he had 2 years to live. Vader, another guy we recently did a full shoot interview with. And so I wouldn't take those doctors' diagnosis of how long you have to live as like your fate sealed. I think it also has to it depends on how healthy you keep yourself, how you eat as well, so you can fight it. And speaking of Vader, I guess he passed out last weekend
the
on
All
a
Japan
Japanese
match. Apparently there was a bunch of legends. I think Dory Funk Jr. was there as well. I think it was when Inoki was in the ring, and they were doing a celebration, I believe, for Inoki, and Vader just passed out in the ring. I know that Vader's been doing some more DDP yoga as well. He's been trying to get himself better, and definitely wants to extend his life and try and keep working at it. And for everybody, I mean, Billy Graham, Vader, Smith Hart, we of course wish them nothing but the best. We hope that they're able to live on their life and continue living past the expectations that the doctors have put on them.
Yeah, definitely. I had a lot of fun with Vader. I actually spent the day with him the day I did the shoot interview, and he's a great guy to hang out with. He's someone that can actually, I did beat him as far as eating goes, but he put up quite a fight. Like, he can still pack away quite a lot of food, but I think I definitely got the nod. I ate more than him that day, but he was a great guy to hang out with, hilarious guy. But he's definitely suffering from concussion problems, because I found that his memory was terrible. For instance, he drove me back to the wrong hotel 3 times in the same day.
Wow. Oh, man.
Yeah, so he definitely has some health issues, but he's a very nice guy, and we wish him the best. But let's go now to our interview with Smith Hart, who was also a wrestler, also a booker for Stampede Wrestling, and is the eldest member of the Hart family. Okay, so we have the oldest Hart brother on the line right now, Smith Hart, who was also a professional wrestler in his time, most notably known, I guess, for his appearances in Germany. But he was also a booker for Stampede Wrestling a bit, provided a lot of ideas. But Smith, the first thing I wanted to ask you was, I understand Bruce Pritchard did a podcast recently where they were discussing your youngest brother, Owen, and you had a few corrections for some of the things that were said in that podcast. If you just wanted to go over some of the corrections you had regarding Bruce Pritchard's podcast. They mentioned that you had written a letter basically saying that, correcting them regarding that Keith is still alive. They mentioned that you were the only one that pointed that out, and they also said you wrote a letter basically saying that Martha was the one that put it out there that Owen didn't like wrestling, and in reality actually enjoyed wrestling. Those were some of the things.
Yeah, that was her point of view. I don't know if it was based on just her selfish opinion or that's how she really took it. Like, she really believes that. As far as I know, Owen loved entertaining the fans and upstaging people if he could, without being an asshole about it like some of his cousins would be.
I see. And is it true, I guess you also mentioned in this letter to Mr. Pritchard that Martha never took Owen's children to see your father or your mother after Owen passed away?
Yeah, she basically avoided the whole family and wrestling as much as she could after that.
And on another topic, there's been a lot of controversy lately with this situation with, I guess, Mauro Ranallo leaving WWE due to alleged bullying from JBL, according to some reports. I know that Mauro actually lived in the Hart House for a while, and I think he started his commentary career with Stampede Wrestling, so I know that you're friends with him. I was just wondering if I could get your thoughts on that situation.
Well, I think Mauro is a great talent, and he got into sort of, serious and, more professional commentating, on a professional level, let's say, in Stampede. And
he was actually living at the Hart House for a period of time, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He stayed there for a while, and he and Jenny had kind of, my niece Jenny, they were an item for a while. back and forth. Mauro had broken off and was doing so much MMA commentary that he had to, be available and move around. So he had relocated to California, and he invited Jenny to come down. And I don't know, Mauro has a bit of bipolar, whatever you call that, and unfortunately they were fighting all the time, and that's all sort of before this JBL thing. But whether it's in a professional manner or otherwise, a guy JBL's size has no real business bullying a guy like Mauro, especially when they're promoting anti-bullying. And a guy that never gets any credit for anti-bullying is Bill Watson, Whipper Watson's son. He was the one that kind of, made that his kind of passion, and did that for years, helping out different schools and Aboriginals.
And you brought up Jenny. That's one of Jim Neidhart's daughters. We spoke to Jim Neidhart recently, and he seemed a little bit upset that he hasn't been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame yet. What are your thoughts on Jim not being in there?
Well, maybe sooner or later he will be. It's a very political thing, if the WE could get their shit together and have a, King of the Cowboys, have Jim riding a horse in the parade or something, and make a big deal about it, and have a WrestleMania. It's not the right timing. WrestleMania is in May, and Stampede Week is in July. So it's awkward that way. But say they went to Florida, where Jim lives, or something, they could squeeze him in if they wanted. It's all politics, I think, and often it's in the hometown of somebody that snubbed the WE, but they overlook that because they can maybe exploit that, and focus on that, and all of a sudden an enemy is a hero, and they're playing the woman or man up for their for their past, contributions to wrestling, and sometimes it doesn't amount to much. Like Alundra Blaze didn't do much, and yet they took her right back in, and just to do the.
You got to throw Coco Beware's name in that too.
Thing just because they thought they'd sell a few more tickets in her hometown, and when she had dumped their belt into the garbage. I thought that was the end of her, but no, they resurrected her. They might as well resurrect Rhonda Singh and give her a posthumous award or something. And, but whatever. It's all business and politics, as you know.
And also, it's been in the news a lot lately. I know you're very familiar with Jindar Mahal, as he's from Calgary and he wrestled in Stampede Wrestling. There's a lot of controversy lately on his recent physical changes, and also that they went from basically having him being enhancement talent to now he's getting a push and a shot at Randy Orton's title. What is your thoughts on Mahal getting a push now and getting a big pay-per-view match coming up here?
It's all good, I'd say. I know both those guys, and they should have good, a couple of good returns out of the affair.
And I understand from your Facebook posts, and your health has not been very good lately. Would you just like to enlighten anyone that hasn't heard yet? The problem, I guess, is with your prostate, I understand. Well,
I wish it was just my prostate. It's prostate cancer that's metastasized to my bones, and that's why they can't do a biopsy or do any invasive surgery. So when I was in the hospital recently, at the Foothills Hospital, they discovered that I also had, on top of everything else, I had a kidney stone. So I had to go to the other hospital to get it removed, then back to the Foothills. And then I still got to go back to the Rocky View to get the stint pulled out of my dick to, finish all that up. But they'll call me, I guess. But I do have one cancer, and it's extremely painful. And if you don't take some medication pretty much exactly as prescribed, you find yourself, you can't function. And painkillers cause constipation, so you don't. And if you don't take them, then it all goes hand in hand. It's like the carburetor of a car. If it's out of tune, everything else is kind of out of whack. And backfiring and stuff, And it's a learning process for, your pain management and your everyday, ability to function, like piss and shit and all that is all kind of all tied in there with it. And if you're in pain, if you haven't managed your pain, then you have no capability of walking. And if you take too many laxatives, you're going to shit the bed or something. And it's just on and on. It just doesn't stop with the limits and stuff. And they're readjusting your pills and stuff all the time. I was on a lot of morphine and fentanyl type shit, and then now I'm on just straight methadone. And it's whatever. I don't know, but I feel my days are. I can feel them closing in on me, and I don't like to say that, but I'm shrinking as I speak to you, and. Getting a lot of letters from old wrestlers and fans and friends and family, and I appreciate that.
Where can fans contact you for anyone listening to this that wants to reach out to you?
I guess Smith Hart at Facebook. Go find me somewhere in there. Smith Hart Facebook, my normal Facebook would do it.
And to finish off on a lighter note, is there a favorite rib of yours that Dynamite Kid may have played on someone in Stampede Wrestling that you could share?
Well, there's a poor guy named Ronnie Lee that showed up from the States, and he had an old station wagon with frying pans tied onto the door handles of the car. He looked like he had just loaded up his car over midnight in the station wagon. He had stuff on the roof rack and just packed up all that he could get it. And we needed an extra body. We were shorthanded for American talent. A lot of the Japanese wrestlers couldn't get visas. It was just way easier to deal with Canadians or, but Japan it's a hard thing in the States to get a Japanese visa for performers. And, so Leo Burke accidentally, I hope not on purpose, broke Ronnie Lee's leg, which didn't accomplish much. Now we got a poor bastard. His family immediately ditched him. They took the car back or something, and they saw the writing on the wall. And Dynamite invited him to stay with him just to sort of have a guinea pig or sort of a buddy to play ribs on. I think Sandy Scott had maybe left already by then, or hadn't. Maybe Sandy was there too in the shadows. But so Dynamite gave me old chocolate, the big tankard of hot chocolate. All of a sudden Ronnie's like shitting his guts out, and then Dynamite, after he went through that, Dynamite said, well, here, I'll give you some Epsom salt, settle you down. Well, that just gave him another round of shitting his guts out. And he didn't last long enough for Dynamite to apply any more ribs to him, but my dad was still paying him like some token $85, $100 a week just to sort of feed himself, just to, my dad appreciated the fact that he kind of got us through the one card he had a homemade belt that looked like a piece of shit that he had bolted together, and maybe 2 of them or something, and dyed his hair blonde. And he's more to wrestling, as you know, being an amateur wrestler and a professional, traveling wrestler, and there's just a lot more to it than anybody really imagines. And this guy just thought he had to maybe have some homemade gear, and his bullshit the promoter. And back in those days, you could send in pictures and shit, but they don't really tell much of a story. And this guy didn't even do that. That would have given him away. But a lot of times they don't show up anyway. You give them a starting date, and I can look back now and see why they couldn't make starting dates, because they didn't have enough money to even get their ass from A to B, or wherever they are, to Calgary. And most of those guys were Americans, and we get the odd Mexican that was maybe too big to be a little flatter in the lucha libre, but they'd maybe be just big enough to do a few jobs for a few months, and making a few $100s a week is big money for one of these Mexicans that has no other alternative except to go back to Mexico and either wrestle or make money at a job there, which wouldn't amount to very much cash there or here in anybody's mind. I was going to address your progress with your lawsuit and all that, and if you wanted to, and I wish you all the best in that. And I know you're a victim, and it's you lost a career, and nobody can deny that. A great professional career with your size and your youth and your amateur background.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation, but we're plugging through now with Great North Wrestling, and we're doing our own thing. Of course, I lost the chance at the big money, but we're still sticking around, doing our own thing, and plugging away.
I appreciate the opportunity even just to express my regard for you and your contributions to Stampede Wrestling and in wrestling in general.
Well, thank you very much, Smith. It's greatly appreciated, and I'm sure we're going to talk to you again down the road.
I hope so. I hope I'm around for it, buddy. There's no guarantees of anything, but I haven't recovered from this last. Usually you're in such agony, you end up going by ambulance to the hospital. You can hardly stagger to your door, and then you get sort of back on gear and back on track, saying you're not feeling pain, and you're able to be mobile and all that. And then just when you think you're starting to get better, it just takes a little while, but you start feeling worse actually, and you don't notice it over a month's period, 30-day period, but you're just gradually getting worse and worse, and then you go back in and do the same thing over again. But I haven't had any of those periods of, relief in my recovery. I hope I'm recovering to some degree. They say you can't kill this thing or stop it, but they can just sort of make it easier, the pain make it easier, and that's about the best I could look for. But I haven't even got to that point this go around. Like, I haven't felt better since I got out of the hospital 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm, I just don't know. I did not figure the doctor was full of shit to a degree, when he said you got a year to live. And he stuck to his guns on that. And if he's correct, I'll be dead in 9 months, 8 months since Christmas. So, I'm not feeling too good. So,
Well, I hope that you keep fighting and it works
I hope
out.
the spring weather gives me a little lift, and that kind, and some of these letters are inspiring. Got a letter from Zoltan, one of the guys I used to meet quite regularly in the Wrestling Hall of Fame in Amsterdam, New York, before it moved to Wichita Falls, Texas.
Well, we'll let you go for now, but I'll definitely stay in contact with you, and hopefully we'll have you on again in the future.
Always a pleasure, Devin.
All right, thanks. Have a great night, Smith. Well, that's a very sad interview, actually, with Smith right there. I'm sorry to hear of his health struggles. Interesting stuff he had to say about Mauro Ranallo, though. I do remember Mauro. He actually called the first match I ever had from my Mat Rats days.
Really?
Back when I was in Mat Rats with Harry Smith, Rene Dupree. TJ Wilson was at Mat Rats. The infamous Ted Hart was also at Mat Rats. Natty was the ring announcer.
Okay, you know Teddy Hart?
We go back a long way.
I have to ask you about Teddy Hart.
Sure.
Is he as crazy as he's portrayed in the High Spots videos with the cat brain?
I actually haven't seen any of his High Spots videos. He's a very interesting guy to hang out with. I spent a lot of time with him. He's always entertaining. He's a funny character. Unfortunately, he could have been a massive star, but unfortunately, he just can't be controlled. I don't think that's the unfortunate part, because he's the best high flyer I've ever seen by far. He has great intensity, but there's just unfortunately certain issues such as swearing in the ring and stuff that prevents him from lasting in the bigger companies, I guess, because you can't be doing that in the bigger companies, and also the reliability issues. I used to be very close friends with him, but there's a few times that he was booked for the early days of Great North Wrestling where unfortunately, even when the events were in his town, he didn't show up. So unfortunately, he's just not reliable. But as far as being an actual great wrestler, yes, he is a great wrestler. And maybe we'll have him on one day.
You never know.
He has his own share of issues, though. I've read about some of his legal issues in the article in Rolling Stone magazine that he had, but definitely that whole family is obsessed with cats.
Yeah, there's something about it, because it's like whenever I see Teddy Hart doing a shoot interview now, he always has his cat with him. I don't know if it stems back to when you were with him in the Mat Rats days, or...
He always had cats, yes, but even in the Hart House, it was always full of cats, and the dungeon smelt like cat piss. That's the first thing you'll notice as soon as you walk in the dungeon, was a dirty mat that the cats would urinate on and so forth. But I actually like Ted, no matter, there may have been issues here and there between us due to some of the reasons I brought up, but I actually find him a very entertaining character, and there's not really any. That's the thing that is missing in wrestling today, in my opinion, is the characters. Where the real characters like the Teddy Hart just won't work now. And he has a personality similar to like Roddy Piper. There wasn't much difference. Billy Graham, there was not much difference between his real personality and the character. Ric Flair.
Ric Flair,
if he was young, he wouldn't have lasted at WWE just because of the rules. Now they like to hire a lot of preppy types that have college educations, that are very by the book, wear suits, go back to their hotels. Like Kevin Owen, for instance, I've heard him say he just goes back to his hotels and plays video games or sleeps. Like in the old days, these people would be acting wild all night,
going to parties and that sort of deal.
Getting thrown to jail, raising hell. Now, I'm just saying, from an entertainment standpoint, it was better then. Maybe for the long-term health of wrestlers, it's better now. But definitely, in my opinion, it was more entertaining when you had those real-life personalities, and they weren't just a character that a writer is written for you. But that's what I think is missing in today's wrestling. It still exists with some of us, but those people, for the most part, don't have the the jobs and the major companies just for those reasons that they can't be controlled. But we'd like to thank everyone who tuned into this very first Great North Wrestling podcast. The name suggestions for this podcast, you could email them into us, greatnorthwrestling@gmail.com. And normally we would do a question period. We had some questions today, but because of the 2 interviews, we just ran out of time to answer them. So you could also email your questions into us. Please subscribe to our Patreon page, patreon.com/TheHannibalTV. That will help us get more shoot interviews, which I know everyone loves on that channel. We have events coming up May 13th in Smith Falls, June 30th, free event in Pembroke, Ontario, as long as you bring a can of food. How much does a can of beans cost? 40 cents?
50 cents.
And we got Sheldon Benjamin on that card, Wes Briscoe, who I hope I get my hands on because it will not be pretty. Rene Dupree is going to be back. Once again, if he's not retired by then, after the 2 matches he's having with me in O'Leary and I think it's called Souris, Prince Edward Island this weekend. It's going to be at Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling. And then Ottawa, Ontario, August the 5th, we're returning to the Earl Armstrong Arena. The Hannibal TV has all the information on that. TheHannibalTV.com, I should say. All of our social media links are on there. Zach, is there anything you want to say before we wrap up today?
Not too much. Just thank you for having me on the show. And if you also want to listen to some of the stuff I'm doing, do a radio show, Wrestling with Ideas, here at the CKDJ studios, as you can see around here. The lovely CKDJ studios. So check us out. It's every Thursday at 6 p.m. on CKDJ.net after you've watched all the great interviews that Hannibal has put together on The Hannibal TV. You can follow me on Twitter at RozGibby. I'll usually post up updates to cards for Great North Wrestling and just my thoughts on what's going on in the business and that sort of stuff. And I tweet a lot there. I love Twitter. Twitter's the greatest thing to happen for me. I just tweet out my opinion. Obviously have to make sure I'm not offending anybody. But
I still haven't really figured out Twitter, but I do have one, Devin Hannibal Facebook, Devin Hannibal Nicholson. So you could follow me on there. And please send us your suggestions. This is a work in progress. It's going to take us a while to get a good format, but we're just kind of jumping into this podcast world because people have been requesting it and there's a demand. And here at Great North Wrestling, The Hannibal TV, we are very fan-friendly. We definitely take fans' advice, and we'd like to meet your demands. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. The podcast link to subscribe to the actual audio podcast version will be in the description of this video, but we're also going to post the video versions of the podcast every week. So thank you again very much. Rene Dupree, this weekend in Prince Edward Island, you are going to be in for a lot of pain. That is my prediction. Pain and suffering for Rene Dupree, and that's going to lead in to the most brutal match he has ever experienced in his entire career. And he has been wrestling since he was 14 years old. That's going to be in Smith Falls. It's going to be cage wars inside that MMA cage. It's going to be the most brutal match in wrestling history. And I encourage everyone in the 3-hour radius, it's right between Kingston, Cornwall, Ottawa, come out to Smith Falls. It's going to be worth the drive. It's a Saturday night, and it's going to be a brutal fight.